It's just like, oh man, that just takes me back.
Okay, well, you can talk about it right now because we're on live right now.
What is up, guys? What's up?
Hey, welcome
What's
into
up,
the
Steve Z?
Supercast.
Yep.
And I'm not much, man. I'm just hopped on here, just starting the Thanksgiving break.
I hear
Looking
you.
forward to 9 days off from work, and
Mm.
hopefully do a few of these in this time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Sure. And if you guys are just stumbling on us for the first time or you forgot about us, welcome. Like he said, he is Steve Z. I am the Super Foch. And Steve, what's been going on with you, man?
Not much. A lot of work and a little
I
bit of
hear
other
that.
cool things like
Mm-hmm.
family's doing well. But I think the big sort of breakthrough in my life is I've gotten back into playing the guitar a lot the past 2 months,
I
which
hear
is
that.
it's just amazing because
Yeah.
I've been playing since I was 16, and then
Right.
I got really big into it in college and then that time
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. But I've been off and on since then. But every time I pick it back up and start playing again, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like you are tapping into like a part of yourself that's kind of been dormant or something. It's like, oh,
Right.
where's this been? But it feels so natural. Like for me, I just
Mm.
picked up the guitar and played for like 30 minutes, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a bluesman, and
There
it
you
just
go.
felt like just expressing myself. It was it was,
Yeah.
it was wonderful. So I've stuck with
Yeah.
it ever since. I've just been writing it for the past 2 months, and I'm actually thinking about doing something kind of daring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about actually jamming live next week sometime, just like during the day,
Sweet.
plugging up and turning my pedals because that's been the real thrill is
Oh yeah.
going electric, like plugging that
Yeah.
thing up to the amp and getting my pedals going again. It's like, oh, this is what superpowers feel like. Yeah, it's it's been amazing. So
Yeah.
that's been my big highlight. Other than my students and we're shooting a film right now. That's pretty awesome. It's going very well.
Oh, sweet. You want to talk about it? Let everybody know what's going on? Give a shout out.
Yeah, yeah. The film that we're working on. So they came in the day of class,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, I think we have an idea for a film because
Mm-hmm.
what we, last year when I did it, like we basically just studied film for the first 2 or 3 months, and then we started
Right.
talking about ideas. But these guys, day one, were like, we got an idea, and it's a
Sweet.
heist film. So we basically started on this heist film where I'm recruiting the three guys I need for my job, and
Yeah.
then we're staging a heist, and it's pretty fun because we've been like
Oh
making up
yeah.
story elements as we go.
Yeah.
Like the reason the whole motivation behind this thing is they killed my wife, so I'm gonna pull out my wedding book or something. Like one of the guys discovers it and is like, oh, so that's crazy.
That's sweet.
So yeah, because that's because I said we want to make these thieves like likable.
Mm.
So I was like, we can't just make them bad guys. We have to give them something good to work for. So
Yeah.
they're not holding up like a regular bank. It's a bank owned by the mafia,
Mm.
and the gangster they're stealing from is the guy that robbed our mastermind by killing his wife. So it
Mm.
gives them a little bit better thing. So they're actually robbing from the mob, so it's not bad.
Sweet, man. How far are you guys into it?
We're I would say probably a third of the way through.
Hmm. Okay.
But it's turned out really well. Like they're learning a lot about filmmaking, and I'm getting to
Oh
get
yeah.
better editor,
Hmm.
and I'm actually gonna write a song or two for it, so that'll be fun.
Dude, that's sweet, man. Get a title?
It's
Because
called the perfect heist.
the perfect heist. I already like it, man. You know me. I love
No,
good.
no, no. Wait, what am I saying? The perfect score. That's
That's even better. That's even
that
better.
is even better. Yeah, we we put our heads together for a little bit and came up with that.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. If you guys know me at all, know our channel, know Stevesy, we like movies like this, and we're about to talk about one that, man, we just both connect on really really well. Yep, Chinatown, the classic, starring probably my favorite actor of all time, Mr. Jack Nicholson, and he is just amazing. We will definitely get into him in just a bit. But I wanted to ask you. You said you've been playing the guitar lately. Didn't I give you one of my guitars like several years ago, like electric
No, you
guitar?
said you said you were going to, but you never
Yeah,
did.
I guess I
I
did.
was
I did.
actually Yeah, I was actually wanting that thing the other day. I was like, man, I want to get that thing and play some surf music with that. That'd be so much
Yeah,
fun.
Yeah, because you've always been more the electronic guitar player, and I'm sort of acoustic blues player. But I can dabble in pretty much whatever. It's all good. I'll tell you what, man. I did something quite a ways back, and I don't know if I talked about it on our show or not. But one of my nephews wanted to learn to play the piano, and he had been playing on this like little toy piano. Well, as you may or may not remember, I have my keyboard. The
Hmm.
big old keyboard and everything. It's really nice. And I was like, well, we're trying to make some space in our house a little bit, and so why don't I just let him use mine? And if he's really into it, you guys can get him something, better on Christmas or whatever. And so he's been playing and doing really good. And so that made me quite proud to kind of share that love of music, because that's another thing you and I have, as we said just a second ago. So it's a proud uncle moment, man, to share the love of music, and I really hope he continues it. I started out on piano pretty young, I would say. I didn't stick with it as well as I wished I had at the time, but I did
Hmm.
get into guitar, like you said, and it's just, if you're ever wanting to just really fulfill your life and just make you, give you some kind of a sense of accomplishment, as well as just having a lot of fun, you can't really go wrong in playing music, man.
I know, man. Like, it taps into, like I was saying earlier, it taps into part of
Hmm.
your personality, part of your soul,
Yeah,
and it's just wonderful expressing yourself that way. Like you're talking about, you're more of an
totally.
acoustic guy. For
Yeah.
me, I play electric guitar.
Hmm.
I'm not just playing an instrument. I'm playing with electricity,
Right.
and that's just really cool. And
Yeah.
keyboard, piano, that's the great way to start out. I think that's the instrument that when you always look back on it, you're like, man, I wish I'd take this more seriously.
Right.
Just imagine where I'd be. But I guess that's what separates those true musicians, those people that are in the business doing all that, from us just
Hmm.
regular Joes. Those guys just like take to the piano and just like go nuts with it.
Well, my thing is, like, if you're a true musician, you don't limit yourself as far as what you play, what kind of styles you play. Um, you have an appreciation for at least most things out there, and that's what I try to do. I love ACDC and classic rock and stuff like that. So my taste goes pretty far out there. And I would say to anybody that's wanting to get into music is just don't limit yourself. Don't hold yourself back just because you may not think you're a good guitar player or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you got to definitely stick with it, and it's one of those things where almost like experience and everything just kind of
Hmm.
adds to that. It's
Yeah.
it's sort of like anything. Like you become a better writer as you get older. You become a better
That's right.
anything creative. You just
Yep.
because you just know more about the life and stuff. So yeah, just definitely stick with it or go back to it.
Yep.
Um, and this is a film, as we're about to start up our thing, is a film
Hmm.
that I'm so glad that
Oh
I went
yeah.
back to eventually, because I watched Chinatown, and that's so blurry because I got some weird setting on my camera. Um, it's a film that I watched while we were in college,
Hmm.
and I liked it. I remember there
Yeah.
were certain scenes that I really liked,
Hmm.
but it didn't blow me away. And then I visited a few years later. Oh my gosh, I guess it was like 7 or 8 years ago. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this might be one of the best movies ever made. And then I just kept watching with it. I'm obsessed with it now. It is my favorite film, I think. Uh, what about you? What's your experience with
Hmm.
Chinatown?
Okay, so I knew of this film beforehand, but like you, I watched it for the first time in college. I actually took a class. If you guys didn't see our first video on this is actually our second review of this, but that's okay because we love this film. Um, but as I said in the first one, I took a noir class, film noir class, and I believe this was the first film we were shown, and I knew of it. Of course, I knew Jack Nicholson, Faye Dunaway, and all of that. But unlike you, man, it blew me away the first time. Unlike you, I just, as soon as that little trumpet motif hits when the
Mm,
opening credits, I was just like, this is something, man. I've been waiting for this, and I was just glued to it. I was just very much glued to it. I didn't quite understand it, to be honest with you. This movie is surprisingly deep and surprisingly complex. There's just a lot going on, and unless you've seen the film, you really can't predict what ends up happening. At least I didn't see any of that transpiring, in the climax. But it's just a great ride, great performances. The movie just looks really good. I know you got it on 4K not too long ago. Is that correct? Like
Definitely.
right when we reviewed it the first time, and I remember you calling me and being like, "Man, this is the most incredible experience of watching a film I think I've ever had." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sure it is," because I mean, I've got it on Blu-ray and it still looks great. So it's just a movie that really holds up very well. There's a lot in this movie that I know there are people out there that don't much care for. They don't much care for the director, Roman Polanski, and but
Get
we're
into
not
that
going to
later.
talk about we're not going to talk about him right now. We're going to try to sit and talk about the film and just kind of keep it its own thing. Um, so yeah, let's get into it, man.
Yeah, and before we do, yeah, so
Sure.
I got this 4K just pretty
Hmm.
recently, and
Yeah.
first time I watched it, because when I watched it a few years ago on the Blu-ray, I was just kept thinking the whole time, this movie
Hmm.
would be great in 4K, and finally got it, and it just blew my socks off. This
Yeah.
is one of the best discs out there. Even if you don't own a 4K player, buy this,
Hmm.
because this is one of the best films ever made, and this is one of the best discs existing on this planet. So, highly recommend it. I thought I missed out on it because I was waiting for the price to come down, and then it went kind of off the market for a few months, and I was like panicking. I was like,
Right.
crap, I waited for this thing for
Hmm.
like 4 or 5 years, and now it's off the market, but it's
Right.
back. So go get it, and yeah, let's get into this film. And it starts with what you said, um, with just how this film is so deep. It is many layers deep,
Hmm.
and I think the first time that you sit down and watch it, you will not get all the elements of the story.
Right.
But once you
Very
do,
much so.
and the more you watch it, the more you start seeing how all these puzzle pieces fit together, and it's just like one of the most beautiful things you can ever experience, as
Right.
far as rewarding experience as a viewer, watching
Hmm.
Jack, or I should say Jake, figure
Hmm.
out what's going on, and
Jake.
just how dark and how deep this sort of cesspool is. And we it's just really amazing, this filmmaking that
Hmm.
happened here, just beginning with the script. What do you think about it? Is it really the
I agree.
best screenplay ever?
Hmm. I've heard a lot of people say that, and I watched the behind the scenes stuff, and I'm gonna, you're teaching a class on making film, and you're writing, so I'm gonna send it to you here in a second. But I'm gonna give you my 2 cents since you asked first, and I mean, I think I don't really know how to answer that question. Is this the best screenplay I ever made? Because what entails that? What makes this the best? And
Mm,
but I will say this: I do think that the film flows extremely well. There's not really a scene or a part of the film that just kind of drags the movie down, in my
mm,
opinion. There might be a scene or two, I guess, and we'll get into it here in a second. But as far as just the way the story's presented, obviously the performances, we've talked a little bit about the music and everything, and the score is just, oh man, score is just unbelievable. Um, but I really think it's a really well made film, and it really flows well, and it keeps you invested. It keeps you trying to connect stuff and people and things like that, and uh, it's just I don't know, man. It's hard for me to say is it the best screenplay ever, because I don't feel like I'm an authority figure on that as much as you are. So I'm gonna flip to you, man. What do you think, sir?
well, I think it's sort of one of those things that it's because filmmaking is so subjective. Like you're
Right.
saying, you really can't say that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to admire here, but I mean, yeah, your
Mm-hmm.
personal tastes may deviate from this screenplay.
Right.
But for myself, yeah, I think it's the best screenplay ever because
Mm,
you have these brilliant characters. You
mm,
have everything you want. Great setting. You
mm,
have um, an arc that's like
mm-hmm.
almost any other I can think of a film. As far as like the journey that Jake goes through,
Mm,
and we're with him the whole way.
right.
So I like that, and I like how there's mystery here that keeps you in, like sort of in every scene, like you were saying. And
Mm,
at the same time, you could almost figure out the mystery early on, and
almost.
all the breadcrumbs kind of lead to that in the end. And it's just so
Mm,
brilliant how that comes about, and how that once that big twist happens, it's just almost
mm,
like a slap in the face.
mm.
It's it's better than anything that, let's say, like M. Night Shyamalan's ever done. Who's the famous twist man? This twist, it
Whew.
it just like you're on the floor crying almost. You're like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how I feel about that. That's how I feel about the villain.
Yeah.
Everything in this film is just perfectly put together, and
Mm,
it that's why I say it's what makes this the greatest film ever made to me is how all the filmmaking aspects are just all on top notch, and everybody does their part to the 11th degree.
mm,
Like you were saying, Jerry Goldsmith with the music.
mm,
Like to me, that's what Town is.
mm.
It's that vibe. It's that
Yeah.
music with those visuals.
Yep.
And when I'm sitting down to watch this film, I really feel like I'm back in LA,
Yeah.
and I'm on this journey with Jake. And
Mm,
I love movies that can do that, that can make me feel like I'm there. And this movie does that. Uh, some of the best cinematography I can think of ever. Like if you just love film and you love
mm,
like edits that take their time, like shots that
mm.
take their time, that kind of get you in that atmosphere. You know, like your Blade Runner, or your
Yeah.
Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, stuff like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you like those type of films, this is the movie that you're just gonna just dream about. And that Jerry
Right.
Goldsmith music, I heard that he only had like a few days to write it, like maybe a month
Yeah.
or something,
Yep. Yep.
but so inspired. It's such
Mm,
great music the whole way through. And the love theme, I'm pretty sure like if I download this and play it,
yeah.
it's gonna be right through this whole episode because it's such a
Yeah.
magical tune that
Yes.
it just it reeks noir. It is noir. It's
It is.
personified noir. It's wonderful.
Yeah. When you have a character like Jake Gittes, I think in any other film, he's the villain. You know, he's the bad guy. He's the shady guy. And maybe that's what they're trying to present at the first half of the movie. But I think when by the way, guys, uh, this big spoiler warning, we're going to spoil the heck out of this film. We've already done this before anyway. So if you haven't watched this film, what are you doing listening to this? But go watch it and come back. We'll still be here. No. But I think when it's like you see Jake a certain way up until a certain point in the film, and I think the certain point in the film is when the fake Mrs. Mulray shows
Yeah,
up.
and I think we're gonna get there eventually. There's something I got to talk about before we get to
Yeah,
Jake, and
I'm
that's
skipping
his
around, man.
intro.
My bad.
It's the intro. It's how this movie
Oh
starts off because we were kind of getting into that. We have this Jerry Goldsmith music
yeah, Mr.
playing.
Burt
We have
Ward.
these old school title cards, and that just sets the
Yeah,
tone for
yeah,
this opening scene with
yeah.
Burt Young and Jack.
Burt Young.
And you get it here. We see this man who's
Yeah,
looking at pictures. These pictures that every time, every shot gets worse and worse. They're like, this
yep.
is getting very risque right off from the bat.
Mm,
And you hear
mm,
this man groaning because this is his wife.
yeah.
Meanwhile, Jake's over just, yeah, yep.
He's like
Sorry,
barely
buddy,
paying
dude.
attention to him. Yeah,
Yeah,
he couldn't care
it's
less.
no. And I love this first scene.
Yeah.
What do you think about this opening?
I remember talking about this scene in our class when I am they mentioned because the Venetian blinds, which the Venetian blinds were all the rage back in the 40s, so that's already a flag that you're watching an horror film, man. If you didn't know already know. Um, but this guy is obviously distressed. He is upset. And okay, I've watched this film I don't know how many times, and on the one hand, I want to say Jake doesn't give a crap, and he's just trying to get him out the door. But the last time I watched this film before we did this episode, I think he does care about. Um, I don't remember his character's name again.
Curly.
Curly.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe not, that much. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think he does genuinely care about him because I really feel like you could think that Jake is just like I said, a bad guy. But when you watch the film and you keep going past this scene and see other people and see other characters, and you think back to the opening, you're like, yeah, he's not like warm and fuzzy, but there's a whole heck of a lot worse people out there that you come across. So uh, I think Jake is trying his best to be nice.
Sorry.
I think he's trying to be friendly, but obviously he can't do anything but show the pictures to this guy, give him a shot of whiskey, and send him on his way. So I can see where people would say, well, he's kind of being a little bit cold, but I just think that's his thing. I think he's doing his version of caring, as opposed to maybe like hugging him and be like, "Oh, it's gonna be all right, man. You'll find another one." That kind of thing. So that's kind of my interpretation of this opening.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you.
Hmm.
Probably a little more extreme because I think he is sort of cold here at the beginning. I think there's a part
Okay.
of him that feels for Curly, and he's like, "Yeah, man, that sucks."
Yeah.
But at the same time, for Jake, this is just Wednesday or something. But
Oh,
this is
right.
for
It's
Curly.
true.
This is his work of his life, probably,
Hmm.
and it's hard for it to happen because I think his character's become jaded at this point.
Oh,
That
no doubt.
possibly after working in Chinatown
Hmm.
and going through all the stuff that he is implied that his character went through there, and then
Hmm.
just he's gotten into this private eye stuff where he just basically tells husbands all the time your wife's cheating on you or the other way
Yeah.
around. This is his everyday, and I think over time he just kind of sort of like turned into a character almost where
Hmm.
he's had to lock away part of his humanity,
Yeah.
of the part that feels because otherwise he would probably be dead at this point. Like he might be just
Hmm.
done if he just cared as much as he does. So I think he puts up a front almost. Like I can get it through the first third of the film, but like you're
Yeah.
saying, eventually the reject starts to come out more and more. Like
Hmm.
as he starts to find out sort of the worst stuff that's happening out there, and like you're saying,
Right.
that barbershop scene is the time where he's kind of accused of being a bad guy, and he's
Exactly.
like, "Wait a second, I'm not a bad guy. I'm good. I do what I do. It's just a job."
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're talking about. Like this guy is a good guy, but
Hmm.
he's sort of putting up a front. And that's why I think Jack's performance is great and the way the character's
Yeah.
written is great. Is
Yeah.
he's acting so much at the beginning. Like when he goes in
Mm.
there and talks to Mulroy,
Mm.
he's just like, just go home, just forget
Yeah.
about it. And it's just
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
guy's
Yeah.
done this speech hundreds of times. He didn't
Yeah. Oh
even
yeah.
listen to what she said really because
Yep.
it's just like he thinks it's going to work, that he's tried this
Hmm.
in the past, and
Yep.
I think that's a huge part of the character.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you 100% on that. It's his way of caring. It just maybe not be warm and fuzzy compared to, somebody else. But let's talk about that barbershop scene in particular because that's an interesting scene for me because his performance, he's, like you said, he's defending his honor and his job and everything. And then in the background, this guy starts, the guy that's cutting his hair, or no, shaving him, starts telling him this joke. And so he's just telling the joke. And when you first watch the film, I think that can kind of get lost. But then all of a sudden, you get to the next scene, and Jake's telling the joke to his buddies in the office. And I've just always thought that's a really, I would say, jarring thing to go from how he is to the joke. But it's you don't see that kind of thing a whole lot where the character goes from one mood to another in the same scene. It's so extreme, because he's pissed off. He's mad at being accused of being, not the best kind of guy. But then all of a sudden he is just, I mean, he's already laughing before he tells the joke to his buddies in the office. So I thought that's an interesting, I guess, segue is the best way to put it between the two scenes, going from the barbershop to back to his office and the joke. What do you think, man?
It is, and that scene always used to perplex me
Right?
because it's like the film has this flow going to it at that
Yep.
point.
Yep.
And a lot of ambience, a lot of just Jack and his guys learning more
Mm-hmm.
about Mulray and what he's doing, and then we
Mm-hmm.
have him take the pictures at the lake, and it feels
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is the way this film flows. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, it kind of puts on the brakes right there, and we
Mm-hmm.
get this random scene with this guy who's like insulting Jake, and then Jake
Yeah.
gets all mad about it, then he just starts shaving again. And then he
Yeah.
comes in and starts telling this vulgar, racist joke. And then all of a sudden, we have the real Miss Mulray here. And it's just kind of like
Yeah.
such embarrassment by this guy.
Yeah.
He went, I
Yep.
mean, that's my favorite part about the whole thing is just how almost the comedy of just this guy's telling this joke. Meanwhile, his
Mhm.
other assistants like, dude, you gotta stop telling that joke. That sounds
Yeah.
really bad. We got some serious stuff going on here. Miss Mulray's here. You've been
Yeah.
set up, dude. But he's just telling this joke, and he's just like, oh, you gotta hear this. I mean, they send the secretary
Yeah.
off and everything. It's it's just kind of a funny thing, and like you're saying, you don't see films put scenes like this in there anymore, where it puts the viewer through like a sort of a ride as that.
Yeah, it's a
So.
jarring thing. It's definitely a jarring
Mhm.
thing. But I think the payoff of this scene, and every time I watch the scene when he gets back into the office, is what Faye Dunaway does in this scene. She's standing there behind Jake as he's telling this joke, and she doesn't really have any emotion on her face. Like, she's not mad, she's not smiling, she's just kind of there. And Jake turns around and thinks, oh, okay, it's just a woman. But then the woman starts saying, do you know me? And he's like, no. And he's like, have we ever met? No. So you're saying I've never heard you? Yeah, I guess so. He's like, that's what I thought. My name is Mrs. Mulray. And you could see the wheels start turning in Jake's head, and he's like, okay, what's going on here? And I gotta be honest with you. It's the first kind of curveball in this film, to say, wait, wait a minute. I thought we already met Mrs. Mulray a couple scenes back. What is this? Position.
I know, man. It's a very cool scene just because we get her entering the film, and this is something I've really been paying attention to lately in movies. Is
Mm-hmm.
whenever you get this other major character, how do they come into the movie? And it sometimes it changes the film totally, and that's what we get because like the beginning of the movie, you think the movie's going in this direction, and then she comes in, and you're like, oh crap, where are we going
Mm-hmm.
now? And I love that. Like you're saying, it's the
Yeah.
first twist of the film. It's letting you know there's a bigger mystery here at
Yep.
play, and
Yep.
she's just awesome.
Mm.
I want to get into Jack's performance because we didn't really get on that, but let's go ahead and talk about her while we're going, or
Mm.
start talking about her because
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Like every time I watch this movie, the more I realize what she's doing
Yeah.
and how great it is.
Yes.
Because Faye Dunaway, I mean, she's been a star before this. She was Bonnie and
Mm.
Clyde,
Yep.
and then she comes back to this film, and that's supposed to be her triumphant return to like just being
Mm.
awesome. And I totally like what they were saying
Mm.
in '74. I was like, yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah.
She's like Jack. She's playing a character at this beginning,
Mm.
because she's gone through a lot of stuff, like
Mm.
serious stuff, like
Yeah.
traumatizing stuff. So
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
has to play a character
Mm.
just to survive, I would say. And then even more than that, she almost every scene she's in, she's playing a different character almost, so like a
Mm.
different variation of this. It's kind of like maybe a different person playing Bond or something. Like it's
Yeah.
the same person, but it's
Yeah.
a little different.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, like watching that, especially in the 4K, because I remember seeing like her eye lines and sort of the makeup deals, and makeup's different
Mm,
every scene,
yeah.
and it's almost like she's being a different Hollywood actress too. Like I know one scene she's definitely Katherine Hepburn, and
Yes. Yes.
it's just great seeing her play Katherine Hepburn in this scene it's whenever they're having the lunch at the pool, and
Hmm.
she's just amazing.
Yeah.
I just love her in this whole
Yeah.
film.
Her intro is just really really solid. But what they do with her is, if you're any familiar with anything film noir, you probably know the term femme fatale, bad girl kind of thing. And I think that's kind of like the picture you're supposed to be getting there, because she's very stoic, she's very stone faced. Half her face is covered with her hat, and I mean, she looks amazing. She looks fantastic. I think it's probably the best she looks in the entire film is right here at the beginning, in my opinion. That's up for debate. You guys, you can tell me your favorite
I think she looks
outfit.
all the whole film.
Yeah, that's true too. But
Yeah.
But so you're kind of conditioned, at least for a minute, to say, "Oh, she's not good. She's the femme fatale here." But then you go on, and you're like, "No, she's definitely the victim. She is definitely, in a bad way. She's putting up in this front, and she's putting on this character, like you said. I think because of what she's been through, and she's trying to, keep her sanity as much as she can, but she's definitely vulnerable, and I think it's really good on the writing, but her performance, that you don't see that vulnerability until a little bit, for a little bit. So yeah, she's just fantastic in this film. She gets better for me every time I watch this movie too, man. Just gotta say.
Yeah. That's all I can say. As I said earlier, it's just one of my favorite performances. Period.
Mm, yeah.
It's what's great, and the thing is, Jack's performance is just as good, if not better. Like I don't want to compare the two,
Right.
but he's amazing just because he, like we said earlier, he's sort of playing a part too at the beginning. We
Yeah.
start to see subtle variations of Jake as the film goes on,
Mm-hmm.
but this is the coolest Jake has ever been.
Right.
Like he's got the best wardrobe.
Mm,
He is he's this guy. And you
yeah.
can see it totally in subtle ways. And that's what I
Mm,
love about this performance is Jack kind of gets the rap of being this loud actor who
mm,
like goes from being calm to I'm losing it,
yeah.
just
Yeah.
like that. Like that's
Right.
kind of his stereotype.
Yeah.
But this one is such a subtle performance
Mm.
that he's just calm, cool, collected, and just your average wise guy, um, who just says the greatest. Like he takes this writing and just does so much with it. And
I think
I
he won
can't.
Best Actor for this, didn't he?
If he did, I'm just being mad. I
Because I
think
think he
he did.
did.
I think this is one of his streaks, or I know he was nominated at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just kills it, and it's I love this performance. I was saying about Faye Dunaway. I think
Mm-hmm.
Jack is he makes this movie for me. Like I could just hang out with Jake Gittes and solve a whole slew of mysteries with him, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I don't know if I do after the end of this film. At the end of this film, when it comes around, I'm like, sorry, Jake.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with you, dude. I hope you
Yeah.
retire or something. I hope you just go
Yeah.
away. But I guess we'll get into that later.
Yeah. We totally will.
Anything else about Jack, his performance you
Oh
got?
man. I mean, there's probably stuff I haven't even thought about that is in the back of my mind, because, like you said, I mean, he is just classic Jack Nicholson here. He is suave. He is cool. Um, and I mean, I think he has this persona a lot like uh, Evelyn, where they're a certain way at the beginning, but I think even for him, those walls kind of come tumbling down, you know. And I think the coolness starts to fade, because he is just, I mean, he is spent. He has been chasing this, um, you know, issue that he thought was one thing, and then it's three or four things otherwise, and he doesn't really know who to believe. He doesn't know. he's spent, and so it's just a really wild ride, and it, I don't know if fun's the right word for it with this film, but it's a really enjoyable ride to see Jack, or Jake, I should say, go from how he is at the beginning of this film with Curly to, uh, forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown. I mean, and we'll get
Mm-hmm.
into. I want to ask you about that last line here in a little bit when we
Yeah.
wrap up, but I think there is definitely a transition throughout the film, and it just gets better every time I watch it. So,
Yeah, it's so good, and they have so many great scenes together.
hmm, yeah,
But I think the scene that showcases him at his
mm-hmm,
best
mm-hmm,
is the scene where he's just kind of had enough because he realizes, hey, there's something you're not telling me here,
yeah,
and I just got my nose partly cut off. Come
yeah.
back to that in a little bit later, and
Please,
I'm not happy about it. So he just loses that cool. Like, he gets up in her face,
yeah,
and then he says his thing, then just jumps in the car.
yeah,
I love that scene. I
yeah.
love. Oh man, he's so good in that scene.
But I think that's where the cracks start happening for Jack, because I think he's used to taking stuff from people, a lot. Now, we talked about the uh, barbershop scene earlier, and he kind of loses his cool there. But I think this is really when the wall starts tumbling down, because he is trying to figure everything out. He's trying to, he feels like he's being duped by everybody. And like you said, he got his nose slashed off just about. So yeah, you can't blame him for being a little perturbed at that point. And I just, man, it's even that scene though. Jack is just awesome. So I mean, I just cannot say enough good stuff about him. Um, yeah, just
Yeah, it's
perfection.
it's like seeing it's like seeing the best performance of an athlete you could think of, like
Oh
MJ in his
yes,
prime,
yeah,
a pitcher that can throw 100
yeah.
miles per hour, have a lot of stuff to his a variation in his game or something.
He's
Like
got it. Yeah.
he's got all the moves, all the speed.
Mm,
It's really wonderful to watch, and it gets into what I was thinking about with this film is Polanski brings something
mm,
else out in him, I think.
mm-hmm.
Because I know they butted heads a little bit, but at the same time they were buddies. Like whenever they're
Yeah.
making the screenplay, they had Jack in mind for it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it just it's a great marriage, and to me, the scene that showcases this a lot is this great scene where
Mm-hmm.
Jack's investigating the water. He goes back to the place where Mulray was killed.
Yeah.
He comes out of his car. We have that great shot of and the music playing of him like walking down. Then he hops over the
Mm,
fence, all in
mm,
one take.
yeah.
It's wonderful. I love it. See, like in modern filmmaking, they would probably have a cut in there, but the
Probably. Yeah.
cameraman's just like, let's this guy out of the car, up
Yeah.
over the fence, and then we're
Mm.
walking with Jake into this place, and then it gets kind of funny there for a second. I don't know if you laugh sometimes. I do whenever he's in there, and all of a sudden the water kind of hits him,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just like
Almost like a Three
what is
Stooges thing.
happening? Because
Yeah.
it catches you off guard. Even I watched this like movie twice in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and every
Yeah.
time it hits him, I'm like, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect him to also just get hit by all this. And you can see it in his character too. He's like, I didn't expect that. And then
Yeah.
he's just getting out of
Exactly.
there all wet, and he's so
Yeah.
mad. He's like, I'm soaked. My suit's all messed up. And then these two dudes show up and basically threaten his life. And
Yeah.
we got
I
you
I
know
just think his
Polanski
character.
here as this little rat guy.
Oh my
And
gosh.
what do you think about this scene? And what do you think about him?
Oh. Uh. I remember laughing at this scene the first time I watched it. Not necessarily the cutting of the nose. That's a little violent, but we got to give Jack for wearing the bandage for half the film. It gets pretty big. So you got to give him for that. But as far as Polanski goes, uh, I mean, he's playing the character he's supposed to. That's the guy's supposed to not be likable. He's supposed to really be the bad guy. So for that, sure, why not? I don't think it hurts the film. I don't think it really makes it any better. I think it's just he just fulfills a I guess a hole there or something. I don't know. But what about you, man?
Yeah, so like I don't know what it was. When I watched this 2 weeks ago, that scene
Mm-hmm.
was very distracting for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know what it was. Because we have this huge dude that comes and grabs Jack, and then you have
Yeah.
little Polanski here. He's like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" Like talking this weird voice, and I was
Nosy
like, "Why did
fella.
he cast himself as this guy?"
I know, right?
And and then the more I thought about it, I was like, no, it kind of works because it's
Yeah.
sort of the what you saw in these old movies. You had the big tough guy and then the little scrawny
Mm-hmm.
guy.
Yeah.
That's with him, and he feels big because he has a knife in his hand. So I'm like,
Right.
I guess this kind of works,
Yeah.
and it's pretty rough scene. I mean,
It is.
that effect, that prosthetic or whatever they did to make that happen. That's pretty cool because it really looks
Yeah.
like he cuts his nose.
Yeah.
And
It's pretty
apparently,
violent.
I was heard that this prop is something that Polanski made, and
Mm-hmm.
that if you did the wrong side, he would actually cut his nose for real. And
Oh.
that's why Jack was actually really scared during the scene because he's like, "Crap, I think he's about to cut my nose off."
Oh my
It's,
gosh. Can you imagine
yeah, I
that?
couldn't imagine what that'd be like as an actor. Just be like,
Oh
"Oh crap, my
gosh. Yeah.
director is about to slice my nose."
Yeah. I didn't know that was prosthetic. That's interesting. I knew it was very
Hmm.
violent. I knew it was very graphic. But now that you mention it, it kind of makes sense for it to be because it does spew out a lot of blood and stuff. So it gets pretty. You get a pretty good idea of that how painful that was for him. Um, and I think it. Do you feel like though that scene does anything for Jake in the negative as far as this persona that he's built up and everything? Do you feel like this scene, especially when he gets caught and everything, um, do you feel like it hurts the character at all as far as the way he's been going throughout the story?
Man, that is a great question. Just because it made me think about some more about this character and why it's
Yeah.
great is so he gets cut and he's having to wear
Mm-hmm.
this bandage.
Yeah.
So he doesn't look as cool, obviously.
Right.
He doesn't look the
Yep.
same, and as a
Nope.
result, it's also the beginning of sort of the facade breaking down,
Yep.
and he's invested in this mystery. Like,
Mm.
I think if he didn't care, he would just like forget this. I'm going home. I'm not getting paid for this.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy that Jake is, he's got to
Mm.
solve this mystery.
Right.
He's got to figure out what's going on, and that's that good part of him, like we were saying earlier, coming
Mm.
out once again. And I guess it's pretty cool that he had to kind of lose good looks for that to happen. That he has to. I mean, it shows you just who Jake is. I guess he's going to stick through with it and keep working.
My thing is, I think what the nose incident did for him and why it's so important is it made it finally personal for Jake.
Mm,
I think he was sort of on the outside still, still looking and still, still trying to figure things out. But I still think he was sort of on the sidelines until that happened because he's like, okay, somebody is trying to hide something and they don't want me to find it and now they're threatening me and they just harm me. I mean, this just got real for him, I think. And I
mm-hmm.
think it really elevated Jake into this I don't know, mad dog. I don't know really what I'm trying to say here, but I think that really did a lot for him. Um, and I didn't realize that for the first few times I watched the film. I thought maybe it was just him being annoying and stuff. But really, it's a turning point. I think it's a really big turning point that makes Jake want to, as you said, solve this mystery and find out why everybody's trying to stop him. I mean, because it's not only this little guy, but then uh, I don't know if it's the next scene over or what, but he talks to Evelyn's dad, and
That's what about to get into.
we're
Yeah,
about to get to,
that.
and so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you get into my next topic is that scene with him and Noah Cross shortly after that.
I love that scene by the way.
Because it's amazing. And this,
Hmm.
I guess it was always there. I just didn't notice it. Is you see Noah Cross in those pictures they're looking at earlier in the film,
Right. Yep.
when Jack's just like, yeah,
Hmm.
just forget that. So this guy is alluded to the whole way through. Like they even when they go to
Exactly.
visit the water place, you see that
Yep.
little plaque with Noah Cross on it. So you see
Mm,
him, but this scene you finally get to meet this guy,
mm,
and he is just great. I love it that this villain comes in at this point in the film, and
yeah.
he just does not care about Jake at all. He's just like, this guy's he's beneath me. And as we start to learn about his little scheme a little bit more, we realize this guy is probably the evilest guy on the planet. That he's
Yeah.
basically gonna steal this land from these people, ruin their lives,
Hmm.
and then get super rich in the process. Oh yeah, and he's also a terrible guy at home. He's just the
Yeah.
worst.
Yeah.
Getting his money off of the misery of others is just makes you hate the guy. In this scene, you get that. I don't know what it is. Is it the way he's cutting his food? Is it sort of the way he's eating? How do we know this guy's such a bad guy? Watch this. Is it just because we've seen it before? I don't know.
Well, I think it goes back to something we talked about earlier and how Jake is perceived. And I think if you thought Jake was a bad guy up until this moment, when you meet Noah Cross, you're like, Jake's Santa Claus compared to Noah Cross. I mean, I think it really shows that if you thought Jake was something bad, Jake actually cares about people. I think he might come off a little cold at times, and he might be a little bit, matter of fact. But Noah didn't even say his name right, Mister Gets. He does like three
Mm-hmm.
times, and that pisses the crap out of me, man. Let me tell you, every time that scene happens and he says that, and I don't know why, it just irks me so much to hear him say that. And I've heard that that was actually the actor doing that, and not just like written in the script or something like that. So, but I think that that's what the scene does is it shows that if you really thought that Jake was a bad guy, let us show you the true villain of this story. And I mean, he's just horrible. I mean, it's just, uh, I don't know. It'd be tough for me to. No, it doesn't show anything horrible. They don't really talk about anything, or he doesn't necessarily. But when you hear the stuff that he did to his own children, no less, then you're just like, that'd be tough to play. That'd be tough knowing I'm playing a character that did that stuff. That'd be hard for me to separate, even if there's no scenes showing that. But
Yeah.
I gotta give John Huston credit. I think he does play this part really well, and there's no doubt in the audience mind who the villain is, true villain in the story is, and that's Noah Cross.
Yeah. I think it's maybe the more I think about it, his stature, sort of like he's such a big
Mm.
dude. He's
Mm-hmm.
wearing this suit.
Yeah.
He just comes across as the big bad.
Yeah.
And like we're saying, it's as we're learning more about how this guy's behind this scheme. I'm not going to get all the brilliant scenes up to this because we would be here for
Mm.
2 hours.
Right.
But that library scene, just
Mm.
classic. The
Mm.
little librarian kind of says, "Can I borrow your ruler?" Whips
Yeah.
it out like coughing. Just
Yeah.
great. And then after
Uh-huh.
that, we get the part where they go to the old folks' home, and this used to be my favorite scene in the whole
Oh,
film,
I love
just
it.
because it
Yeah.
hits all the notes. Like we show up, we're learning more about the story,
Yeah.
the mystery, but these
Mm-hmm.
guys show up to kind of take Jake out, and he fights them off, and then jumps in the car. The music picks up. It's oh man, once again, this is just like thrilling filmmaking. No matter how many times I watch it.
Yeah.
Anything about say before we get to the big scenes toward the end? Anything that stands out to you?
No, I think the more I watched this film, the more I really loved the old folks home scene. I just, it's just, it's gold, and they don't realize, that they have all this money or their names are being used, and stuff like that. And it's kind of sad when you think about it. Really, it's kind of really
Hmm.
sad that they're being taken advantage of. But again, that's who we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
And but yeah, just a great scene.
Yeah, the depraved cross coming through.
Mm,
I was about to skip another great scene,
mm.
the corn scene. They're driving through the orange groves or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't. I
yeah.
started to say corn. It's the orange groves where he's out there.
Orange
Those guys
groves.
beating the crap out of him.
Yep.
I don't know what it is. I would be that guy with the crutch made me so mad. Like I don't blame Jack for just snapping on that guy. He's like, "What are you doing? You hit me with a crutch. What are you doing?"
Exactly.
Yeah, it just gets WE there a sec,
Yep.
and
Yep.
just love that scene. Like that's the scene where I remember first time I watched it, I was like, "Oh, I really like this movie." But the scene that's always controversial
Hmm.
is the sex scene
Hmm.
between Jake and Eleanor. Uh,
Evelyn,
how do
you
where do
mean?
you stand on that scene? Oh, my bad, Evelyn.
Woo.
Yeah, where do you stand on that scene? Because
Uh.
I definitely might have a hot take about it.
mm, I mean, I don't know. I really, I teeter totter. I go back and forth on it. Sometimes it's fine. They've connected. It is what it is. It's just, um, because I guess because the way the film ends and there's not that happily ever after. Again, spoiler alert if you didn't already know. Um, I think I'm okay with the scene because of that. Because there is no happy ending. But I could understand if somebody was like, well, this lady's, you know, she's cuckoo for cocoa puffs. I mean, she's got some issues, and he's sitting there, making love to her. I mean, how confusing would that be for her? Like, would she be able to do that?
Mm.
Uh, would it become because he's a stranger, you know? Um, so yeah, I go back and forth on that. How about you? Let's hear your hot take, man. I'm curious.
So I used to be like a lot of people that said this is
Uh-huh.
just the obligatory '70s sex scene. It's just like it's the '70s. We have to have a sex scene in there.
Right.
That doesn't really fit, but
Mm-hmm.
now I think it actually does fit because
Mm-hmm.
this is the first time we see them kind of act like real people,
Yeah,
and I like
especially
that
her.
aspect. Yeah, she's
Especially,
acting real, even though there is still a little bit of things she's hiding. We'll get to that in more second because that's
yeah.
the other part I like about this scene. But to me, yeah, she seems real for the first time, and
Mm-hmm.
he is to an extent.
Yeah.
But as he's looking at the ceiling, you can see those wheels turning. That he's like still trying to think about this
Mm-hmm.
mystery. He's not
Yeah.
totally into what he's doing there. He's not totally present. But at the same time, I think he is a little more vulnerable because he reveals a little bit about the past. He says
Mm-hmm.
how he got here, and so I think they're both real in this scene, and I
Yeah.
like that because the whole movie, like I was saying, they've been playing parts,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of why I like this scene. And I also like it for the added twist that, oh yeah, you thought she was being real, nah, she's
Mm-hmm.
got another secret that she's hiding, and it's
Yeah.
the darkest secret of the whole film.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of the few scenes where you don't see her wearing anything on her head. I don't know if that's probably not even
Mm-hmm.
a matter because there's another scene where he comes to her house and they drink the tea and everything, and she's not wearing anything but I think there's something to that she's letting her hair down, so to speak, and,
Mm-hmm.
and, and comfortable. So I think that there is mutual attraction there. I don't think Jake's taking advantage of her. Um, I don't know. It's just I've come around to it. I think the more I've watched this film, I've kind of like, yeah, it probably doesn't hurt the movie at all. I don't know if it really elevates anything, but I think it's. I mean, I think it shows that they do care about each other, and
Mm-hmm.
it's probably the closest that Jake's ever gotten to anybody, at least at this point. So yeah, it's all right, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is just because it makes like the ending harder because you were alluding to that
Yes,
earlier.
that's
Because
right.
you
Yeah.
can, it adds more to their story together, their combined story.
Yes.
Because yeah,
Yep.
she pulls one over on him, and that's what I really like is he leaves and he's mad because he's like, wait a
Mm,
second, I thought you were being real with me, but you were
right.
sneaking out. You're basically
Yeah.
trying to get me sleepy so you could sneak out and go check on
Yep.
this person that at this point he thinks it's somebody else. He doesn't realize it's
Mm-hmm.
the her daughter and her sister.
Yeah.
So it's just great. And that this last scene before we get to the finale is
Yeah.
scene where she reveals this,
Mm,
and it's uncomfortable. I don't like watching it. Uh,
mm.
him hitting her,
Oh, the my
but at
sister,
the
my
same,
daughter scene.
yeah, that
Yeah.
my sister, my daughter. It's rough to watch, but I don't see how this scene could not be rough to watch. She's about to
Yeah.
just
It's
spill out
yeah.
that, hey, my dad raped me, and oh yeah, we mentioned we're getting big time spoilers. My dad raped me, and
Mm.
we she's my daughter, and
I have
she's
a
also my
kid now.
sister.
That's my sister. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, you can't. I
it's
mean, that's as
so
taboo as
gross.
it gets. That is taboo as it gets. And you know, I wonder when this movie came out how much people had an issue with that because I feel like if that movie came out today, there'd be a lot of people on social media being like, that's just. But now we're 40 years away from it, so people have kind of they know the film. Um, but it's yeah, it's about as dark as it gets. It's about as taboo as it gets, I guess you would say. Um, but again, this is noir. This is what it's all about. I mean, I remember teacher talking about this film and a couple others that we watched and saying the thing about noir is most of the time, in fact, I can't really think of many times you're not going to get the Disney happy ending where everybody goes off into the sunset and the villain is vanquished and all is right with the world. That doesn't happen with this film, not at all. And so the daughter thing though is whew, if you're not looking for that, if you had no idea that was coming, it's a pretty big swerve, man. And
Yeah, I think even if
yeah,
you know it's coming, it's rough because
it is
that's what I
true.
get from this scene. Every time
Totally.
I watch it, I'm just like
Yeah.
I feel this performance, I feel her pain,
Yep.
and it just my stomach thinking about it.
Mm,
It makes
mm,
Noah Cross you hate him more.
mm.
Shout out to Hinock out in the chat. Yeah, we talked about the knife cutting scene earlier, or the nose cutting scene. It's
Yeah, we did.
great filmmaking. It's great film. I'm glad you're here with us. But
Yeah, thanks, man.
yeah, yeah, that scene uh, where she reveals everything is it's just brutal.
Mm.
And I'm with him. He just goes home and showers after. Like, this is dirty. I gotta get out of this. But then he
Yeah.
ends up having to go back to Chinatown to end this
Mm.
thing. I love it that this movie ends in Chinatown.
Yeah.
Uh, I get so excited just when they cut to that
Mm.
scene or that
Mm.
shot of all the lights because I
Yes.
know this is going down. Because this last scene, like
Mm.
I almost don't breathe through the whole thing. Like I'm on the edge of my seat, even though I know it's going to happen.
Right,
It's like
right,
every time I watch it, I relive it,
mm.
and just masterful filmmaking.
Yeah. I think the ending gets better as I watch the film. Every time I watch this film, the ending is better and better. And a part of me is like sad still that and again, spoiler alert, Evelyn does die, gets shot. Who is it shoots her? Um,
So it's random. It's the detective.
it is the detective, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, she goes down, and I mean, do you feel like okay? We've been going through this roller coaster the entire film. Um, I'm not saying did you want this to happen, but do you feel like what happened probably fits the film as best as any other possibility could? Like, could you see this film going any other way other than what happens?
No, man. It's just a crazy ending.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, it makes you think like, oh, they're gonna get away. It's gonna be all right.
Mm,
And then just the scene where they confront Jake and
mm,
have him in that warehouse, you realize there is no way he's getting out of this,
mm-hmm,
and the helplessness of it. And
mm,
I think that's into the noirish aspect of it. We were mentioning earlier
mm.
is noir is dark. It's about
Yep.
how we as human beings really have no control over stuff. And
Right.
I think that's what this film is getting at is there's evil out there, there's powers out there that you and I, no
Yeah.
human being can really contend with. And
Right.
that's what Noah Cross is. Noah Cross, he's gonna win in the end. He's got the cops paid off. There's
Yep.
nothing the good guy Jake can do about it,
Yeah.
and it's so helpless. And the fact that the face that he makes after
Mm,
she's dead and just is
mm,
dragging I
mm.
can't remember the girl's name, but the
Yeah.
daughter off,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what her fate's going to be now,
Mm.
it's it's so bad, and that's why this ending is so great, and probably why I didn't like it the first time. Like
Right.
the first time I watched this ending, I was like, okay, so what's happened? And it
Yeah.
almost is it's so random. You don't it's the film does a total 180. Like she's
Yeah.
dead now,
Yeah.
and Jack just sits there like shocked.
Mm.
But the more you watch it, or if you get it the first time, most people probably do, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Same here.
the you're just like I feel just like Jake. I don't.
Of
I'm
course.
shocked too. I
Of
can't believe this
course.
happened. I cannot believe that this evil
Yeah.
person is going to win. I can't believe Jake is going to be the one that's cuffed off and carried off.
Yeah.
Um, the bad guys won,
Mm.
and that's a terrible ending in most movies. But in
Yeah.
this film, it's great.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it is what it is. It reminded me of when I watched Double Indemnity for the first time, and I believe that was the second film I watched in our film noir class. And of course, if you haven't seen that film, it's about the this boss and this guy that's supposed to be, on good terms, and then they end up meeting at the end, and he dies, and it's like any other film, that's sad. Somebody dies, but because of the noir and the dark circumstances, unfortunately, that's what has to happen, and it's the same thing here. I mean, and I got to give it to the writers and Polanski, and because as you said, what happens? The daughter goes with Noah, so
Hmm.
you know what that's about. And I mean, it just, I think so. A lot of people, and probably for good reason, that kind of like washes over me everything. But that's something I think about too, man, because it's just like, you know, that's his daughter, and he's already killed the other one. So it's like, what's her fate gonna be? And it's just incredible. It's just I can't even like find the words, man.
And it's tough because of what's happened in the film, but like I
Mm,
said, the meta part of it,
mm,
and I think we're getting into it with Mark right here. For me, this film is ruined somewhat. Um, at least
okay.
it could be for
Yeah.
some people, because Roman Polanski, as we know, has a checkered past. He
Right.
did something that basically keeps him from coming back to this country.
Mm,
I'm not going to elaborate on that, but it's not good.
right.
And I think that could hurt the film for a lot of people.
Mm,
And I've always wrestled with it because I'm like, this is terrible. I don't like what he's done. At the same time, I have a lot of sympathy for him because
mm,
of his life that he's had before that, of
mm,
being a person that was involved with terrible, terrible things as a kid, but even his
mm-hmm.
own wife was murdered by the family.
Right.
So, so I'm like, I give him a little bit there, but at the same time, uh, terrible what he did. For me, the film is not ruined because it's just one of the best
Mm,
films ever. It is
yeah.
so great, and it's going back to the
Yeah.
thing we were talking about at the beginning. It's filmmaking. Yes, it's a director's vision, but
Mm,
it's all these people working together to make this. Because
yeah.
Polanski makes other great films, but this one is superb, and I just can't take away from it just because of the man behind the camera.
Yeah. I can separate myself from that. I know a lot of people can't, and that's understandable. That's I get that. Whatever. But I'm like you, man. I think that there was a lot of care taken with this film. There was a lot of things that they did in this film, and this film's like what, 40, 50 years old now.
50,
50
50
years
this year.
old. And some of the stuff they pulled off 50 years ago would be impressive today. So they do a lot of really good work in the presentation of this film and in the story that it tells. This film's not going to be for everybody. Film noir is not meant for everybody because um, most film noirs, somebody loses, the good guy loses, and we're not used to that. We always want the good guy to win. Um, but I think if it's done in a way that you know gives you a lot to kind of digest after the fact, that's a win for me. That's an experience that, and I'm sure you can echo this, that you want out of a film where you're thinking about that film hours and days afterwards. And we already did this film once, and but we've talked about this film several times, and we were like, hey, let's do it live and let's talk about this film again, because I think you and I could probably talk about this film 3 or 4 more times, and who knows. But I think, to kind of wrap things up and just kind of put a bow on this, man, it's such an incredible ride, and the performances are out of this world. Obviously, Jack is as best as he's ever been in his entire career, with this, and it's a thrilling, fun ride, and I enjoyed watching it again, and will enjoy watching it again later on. And like I said, who knows? Maybe we'll talk about it again sometime.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head at the end. What you're saying, how this is a film that I just love.
Yeah.
It is my favorite film. I've decided now.
Yep.
After these past two times watching it, just seeing it in 4K, it's my favorite film. And the reason why is because what you're talking about is leave impact.
Yep.
Every time you watch it, you are thinking about it after that. You are
Yep.
in that vibe. For me, it it communicates, and it's going to sound weird to those that don't speak poetically in the way I do. It
Mm.
communicates directly to my soul. It basically
Yes.
bypasses my brain and
Yes.
taps into something right here that I just
Mm.
can't even. It's a je ne sais quoi thing. I can't even totally put my finger on it. And
Yeah.
that's what this movie is to me. And that's
Oh.
why, like, just put the music on, or just even hear that. I can hear the song in my head.
Right.
I am just there. I am in
Right.
Chinatown.
Right.
And I just love movies that can do that. There's only a handful of them that can, and this is one of them. And
Right.
it's a great film. I recommend it to everybody out there, to watch pretty much any time. If you haven't seen it in a long time, you've never seen it,
Mm.
watch Chinatown. If you have a 4K player, buy this sucker. If you don't, buy it anyway.
Yeah, just so much fun to watch this film again, and even more fun to talk about it and just kind of relive it with you, man. This is what we do on the show, guys. This is us. We are film lovers. We like all types of film, but we love film noir, and so we wanted to kind of just bring this one back in a live. We're gonna try to do some more of these live stuff. So tell your friends to join us, and let us know what you guys think of this film, what you'd like to see us talk about, because hey, we love doing this show, and I always enjoy doing this, and like I said, we're doing more live stuff, and so join us and be a part of the conversation.
Yes, please come and join us. Great, those that did. A lot
Yep.
of fun talking about this movie. And yeah, we're going to come back very soon. A lot of
Yeah,
fun.
guys. And as
Uh,
we wrap up here, guys, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, Supercast with a Z, and make sure you give us a like on this, and subscribe to our Twitter/X at Supercast with a Z, and let us know what you'd like to hear or hear us talk about. And hey, man, if you don't have anything else to say, I think we'll just go ahead and hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we'll see you guys next time on the Supercast. Take care, everybody.
See ya.